decided to make this video as a kind of food for thought. In it, I'll ask 42 different questions, which are supposed to hopefully help some people to think about things maybe they haven't thought about before, or maybe think about things in a slightly new way. The questions are meant to be for soul-searching and self-discovery. So, I'm not asking people to answer the questions, but if you want to answer them in the comments, that's always fun for discussion, but some of them are also fairly personal, so please feel free to keep things to yourself if you wish. I simply want to inspire thought and introspection with some of these questions. Some of them you might have heard before, but hopefully there's a couple things in here that maybe you haven't thought about before. So, I'll start with number 1. What do you wish people would ask you? What's something that you would like to be asked? Maybe something no one's asked you before. Something you wish people would actively seek to know about you. I'll give a little bit of time for each one just to really think about it. Next question. What subject can you talk about effortlessly? What is something that you can just talk about all day and you don't have to think about it? You don't have to think of things to say. You don't have to feel any kind of anxiety. What's something that's just automatic for you? Next question. What kind of setting feels the most normal for you? What kind of situation, what kind of surroundings, environment, people? What just feels like home? It doesn't have to be a building, it could be outside, it could be an activity. What feels normal for you? What feels like home for you? Next question. What is a compliment that you would love to receive? Maybe something nobody said to you before, a few people have said to you. What's something you would love to be complimented on? Next, if you were a god or a goddess, what would your domains be? What kind of abilities would you have? What would you be a god or goddess of, or a deity? What kinds of symbols would you have? What kinds of animals? What kinds of people would you sponsor? Kinds of situations you would appear in? Just really think about that. What would you want to rule? What would you want to lend your power toward if you were a deity? Next question. How does your mind work differently from other people? In what way do you feel that you think differently and maybe people don't quite get you, or you're just wired differently? Next question. What kind of role model have you been overall, in person as well as online? Next question. In what ways are you the least like your parents? Could be either parent, could be someone who raised you. What do you feel really sets you apart from them? Next question. What is something you would never be willing to do under any circumstances? No matter what was going on, what the situation was, no matter who was involved, no matter what kinds of pressures were placed upon you, what is a line that you would absolutely never cross? Next question. What is a situation in which you have personally felt empowered? Next question. What are you embarrassed about liking? We all have our guilty pleasures. What's something that you love but you tend to keep to yourself? And of course, you don't have to answer this one in the comments if you don't want. Next question, who is a famous person, alive or dead, who you relate to on a very deep personal level? And I'll follow that up with, if you could spend a whole day with that person, what would you want to do? Next question, What is an example of something that makes you feel loved? What makes you feel loved? Next question, how did you prefer to play as a child? What kinds of activities? Did you prefer alone or in groups or just with a sibling? Did you prefer pretending with toys? Did you like to go outside? Think about that, the type of play that you really, really enjoyed. Next question, and this is just hypothetical. What would a paradise be like for you? What would it look like? What would it sound like? How would it smell? How would people behave? Would there be lots of animals? Lots of vegetation? What would the weather be like? The season? Would there be buildings? Think about paradise. What would paradise be like for you? Invent it in your mind, your perfect paradise, exactly how you feel it should be, if it was a paradise for you. Next question, how do you spend the majority of your time? And be honest with yourself. What are you actually doing? What are you spending the most time thinking about, feeling, looking at, engaging with? How do you spend the majority of your time? Next question, how would you describe your taste in movies? Not just genre, but go a little deeper than that. What do you really look for in movies? Maybe it's in the soundtrack, maybe it's about the actors, the director, maybe it's a particular kind of emotion that you go for. What is your unique taste in movies? Next question, what do you feel is the worst trait that a person can have? What do you personally feel is the worst character trait in another human being? Next question, if you were a work of art, what kind of art would it be? Would you be a painting? Would you be music? Would you be a dance, a movie? Would you be food? What calls to you? What do you feel is you? What art form really expresses something about you? Next question. Who might be the most genuinely good, kind individual you've ever personally known? Next question. What ordinary, everyday thing makes you feel tired and drained? So something you engage with often, something normal that doesn't necessarily drain everyone, but for you, you feel exhausted. Next question. Which person do you feel that you've personally helped or benefited the most within your lifetime? Next question. What beneficial thing is currently undervalued within our culture? Next, what do you think is currently one of the most challenging problems in society? Next, what makes you forget about the world? Next question, which person in your life do you behave the least authentically towards? Who are you the least yourself around? Next question, what is a negative experience in your life that you're currently grateful for? Next, how do you think other people see you? Next question, what person in your life has the most influence over you? What, if anything, do you think is likeliest to be the root of evil in society? Next question. What 5 words best describe you? These can be any words, adjectives, nouns, doesn't matter. Next question. What principles and values would you say that you believe in the most? And I'll follow that up with, do you always consider these principles when making decisions? Next question. What stories, movies, games, or other media do you feel have influenced you the most as a person, from childhood right up until the present? Next question. What is something that you would do differently if you knew that nobody was going to judge you for it? And again, please don't feel compelled to answer if you're uncomfortable. Just something to think about. Next question. What is something you needed to hear in the past but never did? Words that never came at the right time. Next, what kind of person do you look up to the most? And what are 3 traits that this kind of person tends to possess? Next question. How do you think a stranger would perceive you based solely on your internet history and social media posts? Next question. What is a quality that you would like to possess? Maybe something that you feel that you're lacking, or something that you would like to develop a little bit more within yourself. Penultimate question. In what ways do people most often misunderstand you? And the final question is, what do you really need right now in the present? So this is something else that was a little bit different. Hopefully this has given you something to think about. Maybe you've already thought a lot about a lot of these things I talked about, but even so, I think it's sometimes important to revisit these types of ideas. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching.